Hey everyone, this is Saito, and this video is a pre-farm guide if you wanna build Ciaccona. Many people are hyped up for Zani, but also many others are just interested in Ciaccona. So this video is gonna teach you how she's gonna work, how to build her, and many things that she will be good at. That said, let's get to the video. But before that, please consider to subscribe, because once we reach 500 subs, I will make a special giveaway, where I'll be giving out a few welcome moons just to repay you for your support. And now let's get into it. Let's start with how she's gonna play. She's gonna be a support slash sub DPS Aero Pistol Resonator that will apply Aero Erosion a lot because it's gonna be a new mechanic. She has many instances where she's gonna apply Aero Erosion, and even if they don't seem like a lot, I have to remind you that you will need only 3 stacks of Aero Erosion. While Spectroprazor can get up to 10 stacks, Aero Erosion will only get 3, unless you use the Aero Rover, and in that case you get 6. So she will apply the Aero Erosion very easily. Not only that, but she will also be able to apply a lot of sub DPS damage and also be able to buff a lot of stats of your other teammates. So she's gonna be a very good support. So we start off with getting it up to level 90, and for that you will need 3,050,000 credits. Even though in my opinion it would not be the best if you get it up to level 90, but the best thing would be getting it up to level 85, because from level 80 to 85 you will get a 5% damage increase, which is pretty nice, but from level 85 to level 90 it's just gonna be a 2% damage increase, which is pretty bad, especially considering just how much you have to pay for that. Now you will need 60 golden fleece, which is very easy to obtain actually. There are so many collection spots, in fact I have like 70 of them without even trying, but you can also just buy a lot of them if you want. Also, the boss that you will need to kill is gonna be the Dragon of Dirge, so you will need the Blazing Bone, and it will also drop a pretty good echo if you are trying to build Brand. And the weekly boss is gonna be Cartesia, so you have to complete the story quest to pre-farm her, otherwise she's gonna be available when the Ciaccona banner comes out, but you will need 26 over loot. Now for the skills you will need both the Tidal Residuum and the Phlogiston. For the Tidal Residuum you will need 29 green ones, 40 blue ones, 52 purple ones, and 61 golden ones. Now they're pretty easy to obtain, you can just get them from the conversion, like if you have 2 rings you can just make them become 1 Tidal Residuum, and in general if you just go around killing enemies you will get them pretty easily. While the Phlogiston will be needed because she's gonna be a pistol resonator. You will need 25 green ones, 28 blue ones, 55 purple ones, and 67 golden ones. Now they're actually quite a lot to get, so it's better if you just start farming already, because it's gonna be quite tricky. So in my opinion this is the best time to just finish the story quest, because not only you can get to pre-farm Cartesia, but you also get to unlock many events that are locked behind just the story quest, and these events will easily give you 1000 gems, so I think that they're very worth it. Okay, so for the weapons, I said this so many times, the best weapon is gonna be by far the signature one, which has a base attack of 500 and a crit rate of 36%. And the interesting thing is that they're pretty different stats than usual. For example, the Static Mist has a base attack of 587, which is much more, but a crit rate of 24.3%, which is way less. But I feel like the crit rate is gonna be much better, so yeah, even by the stats, I think that the signature weapon is gonna be even better. A 36% is a lot, especially if you just start at 5% crit rate, basically you just start at 41% crit rate, without even looking at the echoes, so yeah, that is very nice. Now the effect says that first of all you get a 12% attack increase, which again is very nice, especially because it's gonna compensate with the low base attack. And also when you apply the Aero Erosion on the enemy, you will gain a 20% aero damage bonus for 10 seconds. But also when you attack the enemies affected by Aero Erosion, you will decrease their aero resistance by 12% for 20 seconds. So not only you increase your own aero damage by 20%, but you also decrease the opponent's aero resistance by 12%, and that means that your other aero teammates will also be able to deal more damage to them. Honestly, I think that both this and Zani's signature weapon are gonna be very strong, like they're very powerful. The only issue is that I don't think they're ever gonna just release another character that can deal aero erosion and uses pistols, so this weapon is probably just gonna be useful on her and nobody else. And yes, while it is true that same goes for Zani's signature weapon, it's also true that Zani is a main DPS. But if you really like Ciaccona and you have the gems for it, and I also like that you don't have a pity in this game for weapons, then I think that this is a very solid option. Like this is a very crazy powerful option. It has some very powerful attacks, and they're just gonna benefit your whole team if they're gonna be aero characters. So yeah, this is a very powerful weapon. But another option is gonna just be the Static Mist, which is much easier to obtain. You can just get it from the weapon banner, and they did the same. You get a 24% crit rate as the main stat, a much higher base attack, and also increase your own energy regen by 12.8%. Also, after you do the outro skill, the next resonator taking place will have their attack increased by 10%, and this will be applied for 14 seconds. So I honestly love this weapon because it's made for basically any sort of pistol resonator. I think that it's a very good option for basically anyone, both main DPS and sub DPS, and Ciaccona is no exception. So yes, you get a much lower crit rate, but a much higher base attack, and also you just get more energy regen, and can buff the next resonator by a bit. The effect is nowhere as powerful compared to the signature weapon, but it's still very powerful. But in case you have Carlotta's signature weapon, that is also a very valid option. It has again 500 base attack and a 72% crit damage, which is equivalent to 36% crit rate. Basically the ratio is that 1 crit rate equals to 2 crit damage. So the stats are very similar in the end, but this time it's just crit damage, and this weapon will also increase your attack by 12%, so already it's a pretty similar effect. But the main effect is that every time you trigger the intro skill or the resonance liberation, you will increase your skill damage by 48% for 5 seconds. Now that is huge, a 48% skill damage bonus for 5 seconds, that is very nice. It's true that a 48% is not very nice, but from what I know, she's not going to have a very long cooldown, so you will often have your skill always ready to just get a 48% buff. But yeah, I think that this weapon is gonna be very valid on her. I think that if you don't want the signature weapon, both this and Static Mist are very good. Otherwise, if you really don't have this, then you should use Thunderbolt, but to be honest, every 4-star option for the pistols are very bad. So this is not the strongest one, this is just the least worst one. It has a small base attack of 387, and its main stat is gonna be attack, which already is very bad. And when you hit the opponents with basic or heavy attacks, you will increase your skill damage by 7% up to 3 times, and this effect will last for 10 seconds. Now, to be honest, a 21% skill damage bonus is very bad. When Carlotta's signature weapon can give you a 48% skill damage, then you already see the difference, especially when it has such a small base attack and such a weak main stat. So yeah, you should really get the Static Mist. I think that the Static Mist is a godly weapon on any pistol resonator, and that every player should have both the Emerald of Genesis and the Static Mist. So yeah, really go for the Static Mist, because otherwise it's gonna be a bit tough on her. So now we get to talk about the sets, and the strongest one is by far going to be Gust of Welkin. This results around the fact that she's going to apply the Aero Erosion very often, so there is absolutely no point in just using Sierra Gale instead. What Gust of Welkin do is that when you apply Aero Erosion on the enemies, you will gain a 30% aero damage bonus, and every resonator in the team will gain a 15% aero damage bonus. So this is going to get very powerful in a team where there will be a lot of aero characters, or simply an aero DPS. Sierra Gale will increase your aero damage by 40% basically, and this will increase your aero damage percent by 40, while also increasing the one of your party members by 15. So it is simply much better. She's going to benefit from this a lot, simply because she's going to be able to just apply the aero erosion very often. But yes, I guess that if you don't have 2 sets of Gust of Welkin, then you can use a Sierra Gale on her, because usually you should have at least 2 aero characters in your party. And that brings us to the most important question about her: what teams is she even good at? Because right now there aren't many actual aero characters that are going to be good for her. Jiyan is not made for her because he already has a very powerful team by himself. I guess there is Alto, but you know, Alto is not very good at all, and you definitely don't want to use Genshin. However, there is the Aero Rover. So about the Aero Rover, he's going to be pretty good with her. They're going to work very well together, but the only issue is that they are both just sub DPSs slash supports. So who's going to be the main DPS? So allow me to introduce you to Cartesia. Cartesia at 99.9% is going to be a main DPS aero character, and yes, Ciaccona is going to be made for her. So the optimal team will be just pulling for her, waiting a bit, and then once Cartesia will be released, you can just put her, Ciaccona, and the healer. And this is going to be by far the strongest team alongside Zani. But if you don't want to wait all of this time to get Cartesia, then you can just put on the Aero Rover and Ciaccona, and they're going to deal some pretty good damage actually. But this made me think that if you just want Zani, then I think that you can just skip Ciaccona. Because if you don't want Ciaccona, then you can just use the Aero Rover for the team with Cartesia. Of course, he's gonna be a bit weaker, but he can still pack a punch, and he's also free to play. But if you also wanna build a team for Cartesia and for Zani, if you don't remember, I made a video about Zani. Zani will need Phoebe, but a free to play alternative is going to be the Spectro Rover. So either you use the Rover for Zani or you use the Rover for Cartesia. You have to pick the mommy here. So in my opinion, if you don't want Ciaccona but you have a Phoebe, then you can just put Zani with Phoebe, and for Cartesia you're gonna use the Aero Rover. But if you don't have Phoebe, then you can use the Spectro Rover for Zani and use Ciaccona for Cartesia. So yeah, the best team right now is gonna be Ciaccona, Aero Rover and the healer, but in the future it's gonna be Cartesia, Ciaccona and the healer. And obviously by healer I mean the shopkeeper, or Verina if you don't have her. And yeah, this is it for the video. I honestly think that she's gonna be a very nice character to have, but that many people will just give the priority to Zani simply because of the amount of people that just love her. But once Cartesia will be released, I feel like many people are just gonna get Ciaccona simply because she's gonna be very useful on her, and because they're probably gonna make the best team in the whole game together. And that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!